Hey y'all, it's your girl Mariah Sincere, and I'm coming at y'all from a whole different setup today. I hope that this doesn't sound bad. I hope my microphone doesn't sound bad. I normally don't use my headset, I normally have my other microphone, but this will have to do today because I'm short on time. I have to work like in 30 minutes. I have a class I have to teach. So I wanted to come to y'all today and update y'all about some things that are going on internationally in response to not only Trump's immigration policies, but some beef that he has going on with some other countries, right? For those of y'all who don't know me, my name is Mariah Sincere, and I am a self-love coach who also does social commentary on politics and just things in general. I also do coaching. I am an American living abroad. Right now, I'm coming at y'all from Medellin, Colombia. Yes, I am on late, Olivia. I wasn't going to come on because I'm really short on time today. To be honest, I only have about 25 minutes, but I said I'm going to challenge myself from now on to come on every single day. So, it's good to see you. Thank you for coming by. So, I want to talk to y'all about some things that are going on. So, first of all, Brazil, the beef between Brazil and the United States has ratcheted up and beefed up so much so to where um, we use as an American citizen, you used to be able to go to Brazil visa free. What does that mean for those of y'all who don't travel much or have never traveled to that country? Well, what that means is you don't have to go online before you come to the country and apply for a tourist visa. Now, what's the difference between that and what people had been doing? Well, Americans were able to go to a Brazilian airport and just go through immigration and get a stamp without having to like electronically declare themselves and get approval upon entry. Now, some things have changed. As of April 2025, the Brazilian government has reinstated visa requirements for U.S. citizens visiting Brazil, regardless of the purpose of the travel. So you can't just show up undeclared. You have to apply for a tourist visa and they need to approve it before you come. Also, you need to prove financial solvency. What does that mean? Well, you need to show financial statements showing that you make at least you have at least $2,000 in savings. So whereas before you used to be able to just show up, prove that you had a way back home, now they're saying if you don't have at least $2,000 in savings, you can't come to Brazil. Now, I mean, honestly and truly, most Americans are going to be able to have that, that are traveling, But with that said, this is going to, for example, we're probably going to see more Americans getting rejected for entry, so not even allowed to come to Brazil. Now, the reason why a lot of this is happening is because Donald Trump is having a full out economic war with the BRICS at that point. For those of y'all who don't know who the BRICS is, these are countries that have aligned themselves to basically combat the US dollar, right? So Trump is like, if not now, then never. He sees this as his opportunity to solidify the US dollar and make sure that the BRICS never become more powerful than the United States. With that said, I was on the U.S. Department of State's website. I want to show this to y'all. So this is a government website. This was published on July 18th, 2025. So this month. Um, and it was written, it's a statement from Marco Rubio. Announcement of visa restrictions on Brazilian judicial officials and their immediate family members. President Trump made clear that his administration will hold accountable foreign nationals who are responsible for censorship of protected expression in the United States. Brazil Supreme Federal Court Justice Alexander de Moraes, I'm not probably not saying that right, political witch hunt against Jair Bolsonaro created a persecution and censorship complex so sweeping that it not only violates basic rights of Brazilians, but also extends beyond Brazilian shore to target Americans. So, for those of y'all who don't know what's going on, Brazil has a very liberal president right now. His name is Lula. Um, I don't recall. Let me look up Lula. This is all just off of memory. Like I followed this a while ago. Lula da Silva. Okay. I didn't want to say it wrong. Okay. So Lula da Silva, he is very, very left leaning. President Bolsonaro is very right winging. So he right leaning. So Lula was the president at one point, and then he was ousted and they voted Bolsonaro in, and Lula went to jail on fraud and corruption while Bolsonaro was in jail. Lula got out of jail, and now it's kind of like the reverse. Now they are President Bolsonaro, ex-President Bolsonaro is in jail right now. For those of y'all who don't know, Bolsonaro and Donald Trump are friends. Donald Trump tends to be friends with all of the very right-leaning leaders of the Americas. So he's friends with Milei. He's friends with Bukele, who is a very popular president. Both of them, Milei and Bukele, are very popular in their countries. For those of y'all who don't know who Bukele is, he is the president of El Salvador. He has turned that country around, made it completely safe. And y'all know there has been some very controversial things said in the media because Bukele is allowing criminals from the United States who get deported from the United States who were originally illegal immigrants. He is allowing Donald Trump to send them to Bukele, to Sokote, which is a prison that is like, this is the worst prison ever in terms of their amenities. Like they're sleeping on steel beds. The food is very basic and dry. They're in their cell like 23 hours a day. They're only let out an hour. But if you knew the history behind that prison, you would understand. And El Salvador is the safest it's ever been, and they love their president over there. So anyway, so right now, Jair Bolsonaro, the previous president of Colombia, is facing political persecution. He is under arrest, and Donald Trump is firing back. I have therefore ordered visa revocations for Moraes and his allies on the court, as well as their immediate family members, effective immediately. This visa restriction policy is pursuant to Section 212 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which authorizes the Secretary of State to render inadmissible any alien whose entry in the United States would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences of the United States. So for those of y'all who don't know, when they're talking about the censorship, for those of y'all who don't know, I believe it was last year before Donald Trump took office, Brazil actually banned Twitter. So Twitter is banned in Brazil. And it is in an effort to control speech. Now, I don't plan on going to Brazil. This is the only reason why I'm speaking on it. And one of the reasons why is because if I go to Brazil, I don't know how to speak Portuguese. Let's start there. And I don't want to learn it. And second, if I go to Brazil, I will need a different vaccination to re-enter Colombia. And I just don't want to get it. I'm not saying I'll never go to Brazil, but I'm fine with that being off the table. Woo! What's affecting me right now? So Trump's immigration policies have personally affected me. So I am in Colombia right now. And for those of y'all who don't know, and again, this is not to bash it. I agree with what he's doing for the most part. I have one criticism that I'm going to give today. I agree with what he's doing. You can't just allow rampant illegal immigration into the country. You just can't. And the way that they were like some of these gangs were taking over apartments. I was talking to one of my Colombian friends today, and he was like, yeah, Tren de Aragua takes over apartments in Bogota all the time. And I'm like, what? And when I say take over the apartment, they were literally going door to door with guns, taking over these apartment complexes, and then telling the owners and the management, y'all have to give us 50% of the rent that the tenants pay, and threatening their families. And in certain parts of Latin America, that's normal behavior. But in the United States, we were not used to that. We were not used to that. But for those of y'all who don't know, Venezuela emptied out their prisons and told them go. So a lot, not all Venezuelans are criminals. The vast majority are not. They're honest, hardworking people. But like there was enough of that bad element to where it started affecting U.S. citizens. So I could go on and on. I talked about this at length. But with that said, so y'all know I'm in Colombia, and basically how Colombia works is every calendar year, if you are an American citizen, you get 180 days of visa-free entry here. What does that mean? Well, you don't have to apply for a visa to enter here. So you don't have to fill out some type of online application. You don't have to pay to enter. You get 90 days free, and then you can extend your visa for like a $45 fee. Right. But you don't have to prove financial solvency or anything like that before you get here. All you do is book your flight, show up, show immigration that you have a return flight home, tell them where you'll be staying, and it's done. Right. Well, that's not the problem right now. The problem is for people like myself and other Americans who are digital nomads who want to stay in the country for more than 6 months out of the year, who want to apply for a digital nomad visa. Usually, how it worked was if you applied for a digital nomad visa, all you had to do was prove that you had an online job and an online source of income and that you made more than $1,000 monthly, provide 3 months of bank statements. And it was a really simple process. Prove that you were in the country legally. Now, there has been an uptick in visa rejections as of recently. So, this was a warning on EXPAT Group. For those of y'all who don't know what that is, EXPAT Group is an agency here in Colombia that helps Americans acquire visas, any type of visas. They help you with that process. So, a lot of digital nomad visas here in Colombia are being rejected, and they're saying that they're inadmissible in Colombia. Inadmissible is different than a denial. Okay. If you get denied, they like look through your stuff. And basically, what I know about a denial is they'll either tell you you can't apply for a visa again or you can't apply for a certain amount of time. Inadmissibility just basically means they went through this and they're like, well, this visa doesn't apply to you at all. That's all that means. So this is from the expatgroup.com. It says the inadmissibility cases of Colombian digital nomad visas are primarily occurring due to application of discretionary power by the migratory authorities. What does that mean? Basically, you can have an immigration officer who is like having a bad day, and it was like, I want to reject this visa. And they may give you a reason, they may not. And what I will tell you is that the last time, the Colombian immigration is very kind, but the last time I came in, I want to say February of this year, no. I went back in June and came back in June of like the next day. And for the very first time, an immigration officer was very rude to me. He was so rude to me that when I told him have a nice day, he just looked like this. And if you know Colombians, especially Pisces, they're very nice. They're normally very cool, no problem. This dude was like, he hated me, right? Um, so anyway, so you might have an immigration officer who is like, I can use my discretionary power. We don't even want to look at this. And they just reject the visa. These responses are primarily generated without a clear or explicit reason or with motives such as the perceived lack of officiality of documents unclear relation with the contractor company, or whether the nomad's activity is of interest to the country, even when this last point was a requirement only for nomad entrepreneurs. So I have an announcement to make. Next month I will be going to Mexico and staying for the second half of the year. Why am I going to do that? Well, precisely this. So I applied for my digital nomad visa so that I could extend my time. You could get up to 2 years in the country. Normally, I have a job, like I have a contracted job that has nothing to do with social media. I teach English. So when I applied for my nomad visa, that was the only thing that I mentioned because that is where I get the bulk of my income to sustain me in Colombia. So I applied, y'all. Literally the next day, I got one of these. It was like a discretionary rejection. And basically, the immigration officer did give a reason. They said that the digital nomad visa is for people coming here, and it is what they do online is a benefit to Colombia. Traditionally, that only applied to content creators. What do I mean by that? People who are coming and promoting Colombia, promoting tourism, and promoting travel, and they don't necessarily have a steady job or a steady income. It didn't apply before to people like myself who have a steady job and steady income, who weren't declaring themselves to be entrepreneurs. Now, I could apply again if I wanted to. So I could have reapplied that day and been considered again. I did not put on my application that I actually do have a TikTok that promotes travel in Colombia. And I have a pretty good audience on there, right? But I didn't, I just didn't want to, I didn't want to fool with it anymore. Does that make sense? I was already kind of considering going somewhere where there was more sun and more beach. I feel like I need some new inspiration. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just go to Mexico the second half of the year rather than fooling with all that. My daughter's homeschooled, so I don't have to worry about pulling her out of school. So you just have to pick up and go. Yeah. And that's what I tell people when I say I believe in legal immigration policies, like that applies to Americans as well. So we know, we as an immigrant, you know that there's a possibility that you might run into some issues with the government. Fortunately for me, I have a place that I can store my things with another family that was previously immigrants. So I'll just pay them monthly to store my things. And we will go to Mexico and come back. So what happens is in January, my time in Colombia restarts. Now, what I am considering doing is applying for my nomad visa again while I'm out of the country, because that's another thing. They're more likely to approve it if you're not there. I don't know why, but that just, and I can get a lawyer to do everything for me this time and put my TikTok on there. But regardless of whether they approve that or not, I can come back in January and stay and get all my things and be here for 6 months. And if I want to leave, which again, I'm actually considering doing that, because another problem is that you become tax liable more if you stay more than 180 days. So what does that mean? Well, you have to pay taxes. And to put it in perspective, because the monthly incomes here are so much lower than the United States, let's say you make $2,000 a month, which is nothing in the US, they will tax that at 30%. So, yes, are there ways around it? Can you have somebody do your taxes and do deductions? Yes. But my whole thing is, do I want to fool with that? So I have time. I'll be back in Colombia. I can go to Mexico. I was already wanting to go to a beach town anyway. So I will be in Puerto Vallarta next month. So if you are interested in that journey, follow me on TikTok. Last thing that I want to address, and I'm only going to be on here for 5 minutes more. This is something that I don't agree with that Donald Trump is doing. So he has basically, let me share this. So this is on CNBC. He has instated a visa integrity fee. What does that mean? All people who are not visa exempt travelers to the United States have to pay a $250 visa integrity fee. And I just don't agree with that at all. The United States is already expensive to come here. It's already expensive to travel here and do tourism. And honestly and truly, the way the economy is right now, and I mean it was bad before Trump. It was always gonna get bad. I personally feel like it hasn't hit rock bottom. But the writing is on the wall. And honestly and truly, we need the money. So him instating this $250 visa integrity fee is going to make a lot of people just off of principle be like, what the F? I'm not coming to the United States, especially if they live in a country where we only have to pay like a $12 or a $30 entry fee. Like that's normal. $250 to enter a country is absolutely insane. Okay. Um, oh, y'all can't even see this. Now, I guess in his mind, he might think this is a way to kind of like keep people that we don't want in the country who can't afford to be here out, who will like overstay their visa to work. But honestly and truly, if somebody wants to come up with that $250 to come here and do wrong, they can. Like these people know how to get their hands on a dollar. Like, especially the bad actors, they know how to rob and do whatever they need to do to get that $250. This to me is going to be more of a turnoff. The only people who I could see paying this fee and, just like kind of sucking it up are people who have to come here because they want to visit family, or people who have to come here and do business. So, visitors to the United States will need to pay a visa integrity fee according to a provision of the Trump administration's recently enacted One Beautiful Bill Act. The fee applies to all visitors who need non-immigrant visas to enter, aka tourist visas, and cannot be waived. However, travelers may also be able to get the fees reimbursed according to the provision. But as of right now, they don't really have a clear path for these travelers to get their fees reimbursed. However, travelers may also be able, okay, I'm sorry. Details about the new requirements are scant, which has resulted in significant challenges and unanswered questions regarding implementation. A spokesperson from the U.S. Travel Association told CNBC Travel. My whole thing is with something like that, that is such major news that I wouldn't have even rolled that out without clear instructions and clear guidance. Like, unless he had a clear path forward for people to apply for their reimbursement and get their money back, and like clear steps and directives for people to take, that is not even something I would have announced to the public. And furthermore, again, I do see this affecting the tourism industry. So I don't think that's good. For Americans who live in cities like New York that thrive, New York, California, Miami, Las Vegas, that thrive on tourism. People need all the business that they can get. And this is like one of his immigration policies that I will say I absolutely do not agree with that at all. And as a result of this, guys, y'all can see a lot of people like, here's the thing. The United States is the most lenient when it comes to enforcing immigration laws and has been for decades now. So a lot of these countries who are call themselves retaliating against the United States, they don't deal with the massive amounts of immigration that we do, nor do they deal with the massive amounts of illegal immigration. And their countries have heavily benefited from illegal immigration and remittances being sent back to their countries. So now that the US is applying its immigration law, like following laws that are actually on the book, they feel like slighted, like we're doing them wrong. And it's like, no, you have immigration laws. Y'all don't allow rampant amounts of illegal immigration in your country. They will literally riot. I showed y'all in my last live videos of, or was that 2 lives ago? Videos of Mexican people in Mexico literally rioting over legal immigration. Over legal immigration. Then I went and showed y'all 6 years back where they were acting a fool over illegal immigration. They had these illegal immigrants in fear, running for their literally terrified for their lives because they were trying to stone them. So, a lot of countries, though, they do feel the way that the United States has cracked down on the border, is deporting illegal immigration. So just expect that if you are a United States citizen and you are traveling out of the United States, just expect that a lot of countries are going to change their immigration laws. They're going to become stricter and more selective about the Americans that they let in. A lot of it will just be plain straight up people being petty and feeling away and using discretionary power to reject your visa or entry, so that you have to know this and prepare. If I were you, I wouldn't even try. If you know we have a publicly strained relationship with another country right now, I wouldn't even take the risk of traveling there. I wouldn't, especially if you're considering like being there long term. Try to stick to countries where we have a good relationship, but even countries where we have a very good relationship with, they will impose retaliatory measures, and you just have to have the mentality of it is what it is. And if you're going to travel right now, you need to be flexible like I am. So like before I even applied to the visa, every for my visa, everything wasn't riding on that. I already was like, okay, if this gets rejected, this is what I'm going to do. So it's no sweat off of my back, right? So just be willing to be flexible. Understand that, this is just what comes along with it. It doesn't mean that the United States is wrong for enforcing immigration policies. Again, if you compare the massive amounts of illegal immigration and legal immigration that happened in the United States, these countries can never understand, right? People see the US as a place where they extract wealth. And when we no longer allow them to extract wealth, then they get upset about that. So it is what it is. With that said, I always support legal immigration. I support diversity. I hope that the United States will continue to allow people to legally enter the country, and make sure that they're able to work for a livable wage so that the job market can be competitive. With that said, thank you for showing up. Thank you, Olivia, for showing up. Y'all like the video. Subscribe if you haven't, and I will see y'all next time. Goodbye.